Hello, my name is Bethany, and today I am talking about fairies and faith in early modern England. This is something I'm really excited about because I absolutely love fairies, and I think it was an interesting subject because I've always wanted to know where they came from and how they kind of morphed or changed during the whole Christian belief system coming into England. And what I had found was 3 separate articles. The first one was called Away with Fairies, Folklore, Fairies, and Demonic Spirits in 17th Century by Abigail Sparks. This article was more of a fluff piece. She only actually references by name one source, and that was a pamphlet published in 1696 by a Moses Pitt, and it was based off of his nanny, whose name was Anne Jeffries, and her experience with the Fae folk. And it talks about how when she came back, she was able to make potions and healing things using herbs that she couldn't remember how she learned. And it talks about how people were dealing or trying to understand the Fae folk and how to put that into the new Christian belief system of the Reformation. And what happened usually was they blamed any kind of Fae folk, any of the fairy taken, anything like that, on the Roman Church and popery. As in the Pope, not in the lovely smelling things people put in their house. And so, in the end, people were still fickle, according to Sparks, because if they used their knowledge for good, then they weren't from the devil, and they weren't mistaken or for being witchcraft, because they only helped people. And so people like Anne Jeffries were let go, but at the same time other people were concerned to be, or thought to be, witches, and they died horribly, which is unfortunate. One of the quotes from Sparks's article states that in 1677, the Dr. John Webster diagnosed the cause of fairy-taken illness as ignorance, popery, and superstition, as well as weak religious and moral convictions. So once again, they're blaming the sightings of fairy and the fairy-taken on being either weak or being part of the popery or just having a weak moral conviction. The second article I found was called Fairies and the Devil in Early Modern England. This one was an interesting source because they, well, when I say they, I mean Darren Aldridge wrote the article, and he had so many sources and so many different places of information that I lost his voice in the article. He brought in so many different quotes from other people and ideas from other people that I don't know. I mean, I understood what his paper was about, but I don't know what his voice in the paper was. And that's unfortunate because there was too much of other people, not enough of him. But this source was written for the purpose of trying to understand the Protestant Reformation and the New Christians from that movement and the idea of the fairy belief system. And a lot of the people concluded that it was one of two things. Fairy belief was either a delusion or idle tales, or it came from the devil. Sometimes those combined into both, saying that the devil could use the eyes and use the mind to trick the people into believing differently and having a different faith-built system. So once again, they're using the fact that Satan can move in and change your belief system, and at the same time, they also kind of morphed it with the Catholic Church, because they said for these and many other, they said that these creatures were spawned, Webster claimed, from the superstitions, credulity, and ignorant fancies of people joined by the impostors of the priests and monks. Because back in that time, according to the article, monks and priests were based on, or being hired based on the fact that they could indeed expel and get rid of hobgoblins and evil fairies and other such like creatures. So once again, this article does link fairies to the Roman Church and to the Catholic Church. At the same time, it links it to demonic influence and the devil. You can clearly see that the Reformed Protestants were blaming a lot of faith issues on the Roman Church, and at the same time weak minds. And the third article I found is called The Making of the Early Modern British Fairy Tradition by Ronald Hutton. This one was not so much about faith, Christianity, and the belief of fairies, but really more about the history of where fairies came from in the 12th and 13th centuries, which is one of the heights of the fairy belief in the British culture. And one of the things that Hutton said was alleged encounters between humans and non-humans being which could not be easily be fitted into conventional Christian concepts of angels and demons were included several which were to be endearing components of fairy lore. So basically what he's saying is that at this time, because Christians couldn't figure out where these sightings fit with either angels or demons, they created a whole new species, making this whole fairy lore system. And in fact, they even created another plane for the fairies to live on separately than Earth, and then they would come from that plane into Earth to actually mess with the humans. And most of the time the fairies were tricksters, and they messed with crops and they messed with people, and they weren't very nice. This article was very clinical and very technical, and for something so whimsical you would think there'd be a little bit of fun in it, but it was a very dry read, surprisingly, when you're talking about fairies. That it was kind of hard to get through, but he had a lot of sources, and it was like I said, dry but well written. And so with these three articles, the only thing that I can come up with as a conclusion is that fairies were something that people did believe because they couldn't understand everything that they saw happening before their eyes. And once the separation between the Reformed Church, or the Reformed Protestants, and the Catholic Church, they began to blame the things they couldn't understand on demonic influence in the Roman Church, because those were two things that were not in good taste at the time. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a good day.